All right, Panthers, in this video we're going to quickly recap Chapter 2 that we went through and learned about when the semester started. So, key things. Make sure you've read Chapter 2. Again, the online textbook's available there on Schoology for you if you need access to it. That you completed the notes and review for Chapter 2. Again, those are both things that should have been done about 6 weeks ago, but we just want to make sure you have done that. And then at the end of this lecture, please go ahead and take the Chapter 2 recap assessment. No later than Sunday the 19th. But again, we're just going to quickly go through and recap what was in Chapter 2 with the jobs and some of the professions that we see in the industry. So the goal is the objectives is to explain how the responsibilities of the production staff are dependent on the functions of other production staff, kind of see what all those jobs are and how they might relate, and identify the primary responsibilities of some of those key people. There are lots of traditional jobs that are in broadcasting, like producer, director, which, depending on if it's news or film, may be different. Same thing with performer, might be an anchor in news, but might be an actual performer or actor in a film. But we still have props, we still have executive producers. Those roles, again, might be different, news or film. Grips and graphers, they're people who help on the floor. Technical directors are the ones that are switching video in the news industry and doing a lot of the how do we bring the technical aspects all together. Graphic designers are people who make graphics. This could be special effects. This could be in the news, just real simple graphics that show maps or full screens of information. Video engineers, how do we actually get the video, on, and the process of getting video from, the studio or wherever to an antenna to your TV. Audio engineers running the audio board. Film, we have costume. Now, again, I mentioned these are traditional jobs. What I want us to think about, though, are there are new jobs out there, too. So be thinking about that. Digital and social media producer or digital content specialist. Those are new jobs within the last 5 to 10 years that were never even possible without without computers and technology and the internet. Both of these simply are responsible for getting information onto your phones and getting it onto websites so that you can access it 24/7, where traditionally the jobs in broadcasting were to get content onto something for you to view, like a TV or a movie screen. Broadcasting's taken a whole new role because a lot of it's now right there in the palm of your hand, and how do we get it to you? Photog journalist, too, is one that we'll talk about, but I wanted to bring it up because so many traditional jobs, like a cameraman, a reporter, a producer, an editor, for one story, all four of those people used to be involved with it. Now, one person does all of that in the news industry. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. All right, so staff. Staff are behind the scenes. This could be your creative department or creative people, the department heads. Crew are equipment operators. They're also not seen behind the camera or on the camera, but your crews are people running equipment and doing stuff in the studio or on a set, where staff are the ones making all those other things happen. Talent or cast is anyone who's seen by a camera or anyone whose voice is heard on a program. So an EP, think of an executive producer as the top level of a I don't want to call it a hierarchy, but of a pyramid, right? And they're the ones in charge of the entire thing. So an executive producer for a movie might be the person, or not even a movie, but for like something like The Voice, right? An executive producer is providing all the funding for that program to happen. They then hire producers to actually build and create the content that essentially the outline of a show or a movie. Big programs will probably have multiple EPs. The producer from the non-news world, this person, again, we're thinking of movies or big production shows, like, again, I'm thinking The Voice, or some of those entertainment shows. These are people who are purchasing stuff, they're hiring staff, they're developing budgets, they're arranging travel, lodging, catering, logistics for the crew and the talent. Detail is extremely important, and they're really kind of the key people for the success of a show or a program, whatever it might be. We're going to skip this slide because next week we're going to go into the production cycle and talk about the phases of production. Producers in the news world, these people coordinate the content and the flow of the newscast. They're involved in what decisions or what stories are going to happen and what order the stories are going to go in. They're the ones who are in the control room when the newscast is happening, giving information to the director and the anchors and telling and the reporters and telling them, what's supposed to be happening in the show. And they're the ones making split-second decisions on changing stuff in real time. In bigger markets like Seattle, you probably have 2 or 3 producers, and then an executive producer who's overseeing those producers for a show. Where smaller markets like in Spokane, you have 1 producer just working on a show. News directors are responsible for all the information of a newsroom. They're responsible for the reporters, making sure that everything's running smoothly, that what the reporters and anchors are reporting on is what the station stands for. So they're essentially the manager of the whole news side of an organization. Directors are in charge of the creative aspects, so they're the ones that are setting up camera cues. They kind of visually can see the written story and the written program, and they're the ones that piece it all together with their vision and direction, so that we can then see it on a screen. Production managers handle the production services. So this could be making sure the right equipment's where it's supposed to be, and making sure that scripts are to anchors or are to actors. So things like that. Production assistants are essentially entry-level positions who just help across the board. So on a movie set, they could be running around getting coffee, or they could be running around and getting the actors. In a TV studio, these people could be running the cameras, they could be grabbing scripts, they could be doing floor cues, they could be turning on the lights and fixing the lights and getting the microphones ready and making up the anchors. A whole variety of trades that they can be doing. The biggest thing is networking. Networking gets you into this field and gets you jobs into this industry, and having experience of some sort. For example, if you can show a demo reel of videos that you've made to someone in the broadcasting industry, that's going to get your foot in the door than someone who just goes, oh, that's interesting, I want to go try to apply for it. Whatever you can do now to show later really helps with getting into this industry. When we look at the floor manager, I'm going to show you some pictures here in a second. Floor manager essentially is the eyes and ears for the director. The director's paying it, and again, sorry, we're talking about news here for a floor manager. The director's looking at all the TV screens and all the monitors and all the different cameras that are feeding back to the control room, and the process of the stories and the show, where the floor manager is a person who is in the studio, again, could be called a production assistant, who is relaying information to and from the director in the studio. So it could be the director's asking, hey, what was that noise in the studio? And the floor manager could go over and look. It could be the floor manager giving cues to the camera so the anchors know what are going on. It could be nonverbal cues to the talent. It's the one it's a position that a lot of times gets cut nowadays, but in big productions, there definitely needs to be someone there to help with all the different things behind the camera. So we mentioned like cues, for example. They're the person next to a camera telling the anchor that they're on, to look at a camera. Hey, the director says you need to speak up, or wrap it up, cut, the show's done, the camera's done, speak softer. Hey, stretching or speed up. Those are all camera cues that a floor manager could give to help the anchors and the staff. A lot of this also now is done over something called an IFB, which is an earpiece that the anchors have in their ears, and the director can now and the producer can talk directly to the anchors, where they're having to multitask and stuff like that. So camera operator, it essentially runs the camera, right? Pretty straightforward there. A photographer goes into the field with a reporter, operates the camera in the field, where a camera operator is probably someone in a studio. The term that I had talked about earlier, the photojournalist, is becoming something that is fairly new in the news world. This is a one-man band, so this person is the reporter, so they're on camera. They also have to set their camera up and their shot up. Once all that's done and they record their story, they have to then edit that entire story, and then once they edit it, they have to then get it back to the newsroom so that they can play the story later. If you're looking at going into broadcasting, you need to know this. This isn't a fad, especially over the last 10 years. We have seen this become the standard in the news industry. So reporters, straightforward. They're the ones on camera, writing the stories, gathering information, interviewing people, gives narration to a story. So we see, when we see a news story and we just see video of the people they're talking about, and we hear the voice, that's the reporter. An assignment editor, this works inside of a newsroom. They're the ones who are helping schedule personnel to cover certain stories, and pairs reporters up with photographers, in some cases maybe vans, and they're the ones who are listening to police scanners and helping the producers and everyone know what's going on in the world, to get those news stories, from the reporters and stuff like that. Anchor, pretty straightforward. They're the ones behind a desk or standing in front of a camera in a studio, reading a teleprompter, delivering the news, and a lot of times that they're involved with writing the stories along with the producer, because essentially they're the ones who have to then repeat the stories, so they need to make sure it's in their words. Video engineers are responsible for the technical aspects of the video, again getting it from the studio to the tower, or from the studio to the cable provider, and all the electronics in between. Audio engineer is responsible for the audio, so we have someone who's running an audio board. They're the ones tuning the mics on, hitting play on music, taking phone calls and getting the phone calls into the audio system, and making sure the audio, which is something that is forgotten when we think of video, but audio is a really, really important piece, because if audio sounds bad, the viewer is not going to care. Graphic artists are responsible for anything that's a picture or created picture, so computer graphics, charts, graphs, maps. It could be, a lot of it's now special effects. So a graphic artist is usually really good with Photoshop, InDesign, Premiere, After Effects, things that create graphics that they can overlay and put on a screen. So this is an old one. Very rare you see a VTR operator or a video operator anymore, but these people are responsible for putting the videotapes into the cassette machines and playing them. I did this way back when I worked in TV, and 3 years later after I left, that position was gone. So they really don't have video operators anymore, or VTR operators anymore, because everything is computerized and everything's now on servers and is played off of computers. Robo operator, cameraman. A lot of TV studios have remote cameras. So this camera actually moves around and is controlled by joysticks that you can see down here, and the robo operator is in charge of running all the cameras, zooming, panning, tilting, moving them across the floor, and all that kind of stuff, and making sure the color and lighting is good on them. An editor takes video footage and pieces the story together, so the reporter and producers write it up, and then the editor will take all the video and piece it into the 2-minute 35-second story that it's supposed to be. Makeup artists, not a big thing in production or in news anymore, but we see this in movie theater or in movies. Again, the person who is putting the makeup on everybody. CG operator, kind of like the graphic artist, except these are real simple character graphics or character generator. So these are the things that where words pop up on the bottom of a screen or on the side. They're making really simplistic graphics that are don't need that special effects or super duper creative touch. Grip is just someone kind of like a production assistant who's around who helps move equipment. Maintenance engineer keeps simple maintenance things going. So went through all those really fast, but as you can see, they all are intertwined somehow with one another. So maybe if I would recommend skimming through chapter 2, looking at the terminology, and just remember getting an idea of what those positions are. Your assessment is just like chapter 1's assessment. It's going to ask you 10 questions or so about some of these positions and what those rules do. All right, so that gets us through week 1, guys. Starting next week, we're going to jump into completely new material. We're putting editing on hold, Adobe and all that stuff on hold, because we obviously can't do it because we're not in our computer labs. So we're going to look at some other things that are in the broadcasting world and talk about those. Again, if you have any questions, please shoot me an email. Thanks, guys.